Hello and welcome to We Work Together, a podcast about people working in partnership to improve health and care across West Yorkshire and Harrogate. In this special double episode, young people talk to us about how they've been affected by lockdown and the COVID-19 pandemic, and a selection of health and care partners discuss the issues they raised and answer some of their questions. Let's introduce you to who you'll be hearing from in part one.
My name's Megan Alicanizade. I'm 26 years old. I'm from Leeds.
My name is Gage Oxley and I'm 23 years old. I'm from Leeds.
Hi, my name is Lois Priestley. I'm 12 years old and I'm from Leeds.
I'm James. I'm 19 from Leeds.
Hi, I'm Anna and I'm 16 and I'm also from Leeds.
Hi, I'm Kemmi. I'm 18 and I'm from Bradford.
Conversation in part one was facilitated by Megan Alicanizade and Gage Oxley from Common Room, an organisation based in Leeds led by lived experience in mental health. Megan got things going with a quote from children and young people's charity, Young Minds.
Children and young people across the UK have had their lives turned upside down by the pandemic. Almost every young person has had to adjust to dramatic changes in their education or employment, routine and home life. Some have experienced bereavement or other traumatic experiences during the lockdown period, while groups who are already marginalised or disadvantaged are now likely to become more so. So just as a little intro and precursor to what we're going to chat about, I'll start things off by just asking, how did you feel during lockdown? Yeah, Lois?
It was very strange, wasn't it? I felt quite happy, but also sad at the same time because really I stepped back from everything. I was doing so many things. Like I never got time to just sit back and like relax basically. And I got to spend more time with my family. So that was quite a positive thing that happened during the lockdown period. But also I couldn't see my friends. I couldn't go to school and it was quite hard with online school because especially my school, we couldn't do Zoom meetings. We couldn't do face-to-face. So we just got the work, go on, do it. So that was quite hard, but overall it was all right, I would say, but it could have been better.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like there's just so many different positives and negatives, as you mentioned, like being able to see your family a little bit more and spend more time with them is a massive thing. But then again, you've also got the negatives of not being able to see friends. I mean, James, have you found anything similar with that?
Yeah, I was a bit in the middle as well because, like you said, there's positives and negatives. Like I did find it really difficult not to see my friends and my family, especially like my gran, because I used to go see her quite a lot. And then it literally overnight it went from being able to go see her to FaceTime, and it's not the same. That got me down a bit, but I just tried keeping myself doing things so that I wasn't thinking about it. I'm a bit with Lois, like it were a bit up and down.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, Anna, how have you found your mental well-being kind of been impacted in any way with lockdown?
I mean, I think it changed a lot over the period of lockdown. I kind of had like good moments and bad moments, like everyone does. For me, probably the hardest was right when it started, because I was still in school, right? And we were kind of had to still do our schoolwork, but because we were like in school, we were kind of just staring at our computer screens all day. And so I couldn't really spend time with my family, but I wasn't in school either. So I think that was probably the worst for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was just such a massive change in everyone's kind of routine, wasn't it? Kemmi, what did you feel about how have you been feeling kind of overall in lockdown?
I think my mental health definitely deteriorated just because, like, my nan doesn't know how to use FaceTime, and my nan's like my rock. I speak to her every day, and texting is not the same as seeing face to face. So in terms of like family and things, that wasn't very nice because my family, like, we're very close, so not seeing them really like got to me. But everything else, like, I think overall it's been good in a way because it's brought me and my family together. So we've all been getting on and things, and like usually we don't get on in the house, and now we're just on like amazing terms. And I think the key to it was making sure like I went on walks every day and making sure I got my exercise in, because when you're stuck inside, it's hard, isn't it? It's really hard.
Definitely. I think you make a really interesting point there about exercise and getting outdoors, because I'm sure we're all aware that for a lot of people that became such a big part of our lives, taking up new hobbies and getting outdoors. And it just made me think, is there anything that you guys did, whether that was getting outdoors or something else that helped you cope, or just something new that came about in lockdown that you thought was a positive? And Lois?
My whole family took up bike riding. Every single day, you would see one person out of my whole family going out on a bike ride, and that was very fun because you could talk to them about like where they've been and where you can go next. But then also cooking and baking. My mum normally does all the cooking in the house, but I've been doing quite a lot of the meals, and me and my little sister have taken up baking, and we've absolutely rocked scones. That is something that we've absolutely perfected, so that was very fun.
I'm expecting some in the post. I want to try some scones. That's great. The baking is fantastic. James, I mean, what have you found anything that you've picked up, or any new hobbies or anything?
I just stuck to my PS4, to be fair, because like my friends, like that was my only way of interacting really with them. I did for like the first couple of months spend a lot of time on it, and then like I kind of like drifted away from it because I thought, well, I'm playing that a bit too much. So it were just things like me and my sister like playing football, so just go have a little kickabout or something. If a second lockdown does come, I'm a bit more prepared, and I want to start learning how to play guitar again. So I'm going to try nail that.
Amazing. We're all going to come out of lockdown as like superstars in loads of different fields. We've got a baker, we've got a musician. It's going to be great. I mean, Anna, have you learned anything kind of skills wise, or been able to spend more time with your hobbies and stuff outside of school?
Yeah, I mean, we also did baking. It's kind of an important lockdown skill. And for us, it was kind of brownies that dominated the world. But otherwise, I kind of like realized early on that I had to have something to do. Otherwise, I'd just get so bored. So I like decided to learn to like code online, because there's loads of kind of free courses you can do. And I didn't get that far, but it was still kind of fun.
That's incredible. Blimey. Okay, wow. So we've got brownies and we've got scones and now a professional coder as well. This is fantastic. We're assembling like an Avengers team, like Lois said. Kem, what have you done? Have you kind of found? You mentioned kind of getting out and doing exercise and stuff. Have you managed to find any like hobbies or skills or anything that's taking your fancy?
Well, I'm quite like into my music, so I'm a rapper. So I've just been making beats. I think I've wrote more in this short period of time than I've wrote in probably a full year. So it's mad. It's kind of been like a blessing in disguise, because I've got so much done. I think I've changed my bedroom like around like 3 times. Yeah, I've just been like consistent at like making beats and like writing lyrics. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully get some of these out. So yeah, that's what's got me through music, I think, as well as exercise and getting out. But yeah, music's been a very big part of my lockdown journey.
That's incredible. Fine, well done. Yeah, I'll look forward to hearing them. That sounds great. Has anything, obviously we weren't really expecting to be in this situation a year ago. Would you have known like what to do in a crisis?
I think that like our school's quite good in it. So we had on online school we had like PSE lessons like about where you could go, and if you really need someone to talk to, you could always talk to the teachers and stuff like that. But then also some of my friends didn't, even though they had that lesson before that lesson, they didn't know like where to go or who to talk to. So I think I'm one of the lucky ones in that case, that like I knew where to go.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lois. It sounds like you and your friends within your school have been quite on it in terms of getting the knowledge, and it's something for you to say that you feel lucky to have that, because I guess not everyone does. Anna, did your school, I know you said it seemed quite intense, having to do the work and still not be there and not see your family. Was there any kind of support in that sense around how to support your mental health or what to do in a crisis?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm really lucky, mostly for my family, because they're great and they're really supportive. And you know, if I say that it's something that I'm struggling in school or at home, they really help me with that. But yeah, I do think that with school it was difficult because there's not necessarily even like a call, and you have a worksheet of questions to do, and you're not very motivated to do anything really. So I did find that difficult.
So can I ask, just to follow up on that, I know you said your family were brilliant at helping you cope with that. Do you feel like anything else might have helped you cope?
I think probably family and friends were kind of the most important thing for me. Of course, there's the school as well, and I think they can definitely help if there are teachers that can support, and just kind of the staff that send out emails to kind of make sure everyone's doing all right. And that's always really nice. But it's kind of the people who you're close to who do help the most, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I remember, Kemmi, you saying about your family relationships just being super solid now in terms of support or knowing what to do in a crisis. Do you have any information? Do you know much about what to do in that kind of scenario?
I didn't at first, but then I was doing a placement at Bernardo's last year, and I learned a lot then. So it's strange to say, but it kind of set me up for lockdown. So if I did need help with like my mental health, I knew where to look. But I think who played a big part is my fellow apprentices, because we've just been on calls every day, and they're asking, are you okay? Like, as well as my family and my friends as well. Obviously my work colleagues, and I think it's really good when you've got that support from your work colleagues, and you know, if you needed anything you could just ask them. If you needed help, they'd like signpost you where to go. So yeah, I think it's just been like a big sheet of support, so like different people coming together as one. So if I needed the help, I'd know where to go.
That's really lovely to hear. I'm so glad to hear that you've got that support in place with a network of people around you. That's definitely something to be grateful about. Can I ask James, are there any similarities there in terms of your experience?
Before lockdown, I did spend a lot of time with my cousin who suffers with like mental health illnesses herself, and now she works at IAPT, I think it is. She's doing well there, and she were a bit of a support system for me throughout lockdown, and I could always pick her brain if I needed experience or anything.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm really glad to hear that your cousin is doing better, and sounds like probably a source of quite a lot of knowledge for you through her own insight and your own.
I'd love to know, how do you feel about where the world's going, and kind of generally what's your thoughts about the future? Are you optimistic about it? What do you think what the world's going to look like?
I'm a bit confused, to be fair, because you just don't know what's going on anymore. They're telling you that there's these restrictions, but then like you can still go to school, and like football clubs, you can still go to organised sport and stuff like that. That stuff like is the same amount of risk. And I know it's not Leeds, but like in London, you see that they've put like 10 p.m. curfew, but it's just added more traffic to like the tube system and public transport, and the pictures you see of how close they are together. It's like, well, that's the issue as well. So why have you? I don't feel like we're going in the right direction.
That resonates with me massively, and I guess that confusion, how does it make you feel in terms of just your own well-being and yourself, and just feeling like we're not going in the right direction, everything contradicts, it makes no sense? How does that make you feel in yourself?
It doesn't help, because you feel like you got no sense of direction, and the government and like the powers that be and stuff, like if they don't know what they're doing, then you don't know what you're doing. But at this present moment, if I had to like say one word, it'd be annoyed, because I feel like our interests are at heart, and it's more we've got to save the economy.
I would say I totally agree with James. It's very confusing, but also I feel that like I've like stopped listening to the news. I know this may sound really bad, but like during lockdown, it just made me feel like there's nothing going on. We're like taking 2 steps forward and then going 3 steps back and stuff like that. But I think if we keep on going in this way, we could get somewhere, but I still could. I don't know enough about it to say this is what I would do. But I think that it's just, we need to think about everybody, not just certain parts of it. When you think about everything.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, Lois as well. Have you just gone back to a new school year at high school as well? And how's that for you? Do you feel like things are going to be a bit tricky?
Yeah, I'm actually in year 8. I've just started year 8, but I did miss half of my year 7. There's a lot of new things in school, but we're there on the corridors all bumping into each other, so why can't we just move classrooms? It's very strange, and it's a new routine that you have to get into, so.
Yeah, I mean, routine is something that usually kind of gives a lot of people that sense of like just being able to understand what's going on and not feeling too anxious about things if we can understand what's happening. And it seems that there's so much confusion about the current state of affairs that we don't really know what is actually happening. I mean, Anna, have you found anything that you're kind of feeling about the future? Do you take a positive approach, or are you equally as confused?
I mean, I think the fact that like we don't know when it's going to end is just really, really difficult to deal with, because at least kind of when we were in the middle of lockdown, we kind of thought, you know, we'd have lockdown and then it would be fine, we'd be back to normal. But now we're kind of half in lockdown, half not, and we don't really know what's going to happen next.
No,
Yeah.
I think you make a really valid point. What I got from what you were saying that resonated with me was how it just feels like limbo. How about you, Kemmi? I'd love to hear your thoughts on how things are looking on the road ahead.
I think it's the uncertainty, like for me, like it's the not knowing what's going to happen. It's just really confusing, I think. They need to give us a clear direction of what's going to happen, even though they may not know. They could tell us more than what we already know. I mean, in terms of the future, I think things will never be the same again.
I'd really love to hear your guys' opinion on how young people are being portrayed in this whole pandemic, by whether it's by the media, by the government, by just people you know. I've got a little something I'm going to read out just to bring this in. So The Guardian on the 10th of September wrote an article with the headline, "Scapegoating Young People for Britain's Rising Coronavirus Rates is a Poor Strategy." And in this article, they said that just after Matt Hancock made comments on Radio 1 to the Newsbeat listeners, "Don't kill your gran by catching coronavirus and then passing it on." So he made those comments, and after that, a YouGov poll came out showing that actually 70% of 18 to 24-year-olds wanted to take the pandemic more seriously and wanted other people to take it more seriously. So this image of young people flouting the rules and the restrictions and partying and drinking and that kind of stereotype, we've seen it a lot across the media. It may be that some spectacular violations are happening, but what actually is the wider reality, and is this an accurate representation of young people? James, have you got any thoughts?
It's not fair on us, because you see quite a lot now, like on social media and stuff, like bits of news, they're blaming young people, and well, we're just listening to what you're saying. 1 minute you're saying stay at home, next minute you're saying, oh, actually we'll pay for you to go eat, and then next minute saying stay at home again. It's like, we've done what you said, we are to blame. I do think that some young people don't take it seriously. Like, I know people that don't take it seriously, but that's because they don't believe in it. Then again, I do know a lot more people that do want to take it seriously, and they're just, because I think now it's just a point where they want it to be over, because it's lasted that long and there's a lot of uncertainty around it. I don't think it's fair for us to end up with all the blame when all we've done is listen to guidelines.
Yeah, thank you, James. Lois, what do you feel about the comments made to the media?
I think I'm only 12. I'm one of the younger ones, so I don't go out by myself. I've only been out twice with my parents, like to eat and stuff. Like, all my friends that I know are following the rules, and their older siblings are following the rules. One of my friends' brother and sister, they don't go out because they're so on it. They just don't want to give it to anybody, just in case they like get it. It's not very fair, because if you look outside, who are the people that are walking around? The people that aren't getting blamed for it. The people that aren't getting like told off by anybody. They're just they're getting under the radar. So I think that people are following the rules. It's just you're looking in the wrong places.
I think that needs to be echoed as far and as wide as we can. That was brilliant. Anna, the statement from Matt Hancock there saying, don't kill your gran by catching coronavirus, then passing it on. Do you think that's a worthwhile strategy, or do you think that's not really working?
First of all, it's not just young people who aren't following the rules. Like, there are plenty of older people too. And yeah, I think there's a large majority of people who are following the rules and who are listening to these, the government telling everybody what to do, and who are really trying to do their best to keep the pandemic from spreading. But for me, it's the government's responsibility to make an example and to show everyone how we should be behaving and be clear with their rules about what we should be doing and why and how much and when. So young people are definitely being scapegoated way too much, and I do think that's really unfair on us.
One of the articles I read on Sky News, again, headline being like, coronavirus, are young people to blame for a new rise in cases? And just speculating on all these things. And they were speaking to different doctors about what they thought. And one doctor, he said that younger people tend to socialise more. They will tend to go in clubs and bars and restaurants and try to enjoy themselves as much as possible. Vulnerable and older people will still be shielding. In some ways, younger people don't care that much for this. They are not scared in the sense that it does not cause death rate at such a high rate of them. Again, he went on to say young people are interpreting the messages they've been getting as saying they are less at risk and reacting to the end of lockdown.
It's not even if it's just death rate. Like, I've had this debate with like my friends that they don't really believe in it, and it's they do say it's like, well, the death rate's low, and it's like, well, it's not just a death rate, there's an infection rate as well, and if the infection rate's going to get higher, the death rate's going to get higher anyway. So you're right, like, to me the argument cancels like that out. But I remember when the pubs opened for the first time again, and it may have been Sky News, I can't remember who it was, but I remember watching, and there was no young people there, like, going to the locals. It were all like, I don't really want to say an age, but like fairly older than like sales, and like they were purposely going around trying to interview the youngest looking people they could find, or like people who are in groups. So I think, as well as like the government, media to blame as well, because they're tarnishing our image. And when I've been out, there's no young people around. They'll look at us like, oh, you're a young person. It's like, yeah, but there's like older people in here that going under the radar. And it's like they need somebody to blame, but they don't want to blame themselves. It's just been us that's taken the brunt of it.
I really hear what you're saying there. Some really valid examples too. Thank you for sharing those. Just to follow on from something you said then that caught my attention about the conversation between friends and how you had different opinions. I wondered, and I asked this to everyone, how has lockdown and COVID, has that impacted anyone's relationships, whether that's with family or friends or partners, in terms of whether that's just been the stress of lockdown, or that's been talking about COVID and people having disagreements over the restrictions? I don't know, James, if you want to follow that back up, or I can go to someone else.
There has been times like with my friends when like we have been into like a debate about it, it does feel tense, and like they feel like adamant that they're right, but then you feel adamant that you're right, and then it's like there's purposely put a divide, and there's going to be one side of the fence and the other side of the fence, and that's how it's going to stay until something happens. I think it's just something like we've got to work with. Try understand other people's perspectives, regardless of what you think, so that it's not causing that much strain on like friendships or relationships or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think you made some really, really valid points there. It's different for everyone, and it depends on so many factors, but it's tricky to navigate. Lois, I saw you raise your hand.
I couldn't see my dad for 3 months, And that was really hard because I'm used to seeing him every weekend. Like, I would spend like that time with him. And it was especially hard on my little sister. She's very, very close with my dad. So it was very hard on her. And I think I see my grandma, but I don't see her 24/7. I don't see her face to face that often. So I do talk to her. But I think that many kids, like, they have that one person in their family that they really rely on. But then if you can't see them, it's quite hard.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That must have been really difficult for your whole family. I can't imagine. And it's stuff like this, that people need to be aware of on a personal level, the things that people are going through and having to deal with, changes that you wouldn't normally have to on a daily basis. Kemmi, I remember you saying about your grandma being your rock and how you normally speak to her every day, but then, conversely, your family relationships really improved. Do you have anything to add on that, just about how your relationships have been affected by lockdown and the stresses?
My auntie just recently passed away. She had cancer, and because she was classed as high risk, we weren't allowed to see her as often as I would like to have seen her through lockdown, and that was my nan's sister. That's why it really got to me not being able to speak to my nan, because obviously they were really, really tight, and not being able to see my auntie. So yeah, I think that's been the hardest bit, to be honest. It's hard to explain. It's just, I don't know what to say, sorry. It's very difficult, especially when you've got poorly people in your family and something could happen to them at any moment and you're not allowed to see them. That's quite difficult.
Definitely. I'm so sorry to hear about the passing of your auntie and how hard that must have been for your whole family. Thank you for sharing such a sensitive thing. And like we mentioned before, people have had their lives turned upside down by COVID and stuff that, scenarios you wouldn't normally have to even consider. You wouldn't have to, just these bizarre abstract scenarios we would never have to face, and having to navigate them whilst everything else is going on, that must have been such a challenge for you all. Anna, how have things been for your relationships during lockdown?
Lockdown really brought together our family, and that was really important because we kind of all realized at the beginning, we were like, this isn't going to work if we all get into arguments all the time. We kind of really made more of an effort to be caring of each other and respectful, and that was really nice because it did kind of make a difference. Otherwise, I think with my friends, it was really nice, have other people to talk to outside of that. But there were definitely moments where I started to feel like I was losing touch with them, and not seeing your school friends on a day-to-day basis does make a difference, and that was kind of hard to manage at times. That's one of the reasons it just feels good to be back in school now.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that your family managed to come together, because I know certain friends and families who have not been as successful. But I completely agree, and I think it's such a valid point you make about school, because that is where, when you are at school, that's where you spend so much of your life. Your whole social network is there, everything is there, and to just have that taken away so quickly, not gradually, it's very hard to adjust to that new way of, well, how do we maintain the friendship? How do we carry on to be there for each other? And it's hard not to feel lonely. Gage, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say thank you firstly for sharing all of your thoughts on that. What do you want the government, mental health professionals to know about the lockdown for young people? If you could talk to them directly, what would you ask or tell them?
We're not to blame. There will be young people that will be hung up on that, and that'll affect their mental health, because they're being thrown from pillar to pillar, doing one thing to another, and they're just following what people are saying. It's if they're then being told, well, it's your fault, you'll feel really bad. I'd probably tell the government we're not to blame, and probably have mental health professionals offer a bit more support. I mean, it will be hard because most of the things are either phone calls or Zooms, but I suppose maybe be ready, because there will be not just a rise in coronavirus cases, but people trying to reach out for help. some people may not cope as well with the second one.
I would think to the government, I would say you need to include us. You can't just blame us. If you're going to blame us, then you have to include us in something. You have to say, well, if they're doing this, then we have to do this. Don't just put it out there that we're just breaking all the rules or something like that. And to mental health officials, I would say people out there, especially young people, some of them are coping, but barely. Some of them are just getting through. Some of them are just have got that one thing that really keeps them going. But if that gets taken away, then then that big chunk of people, they are going to be really hurt by it and stuff. So I think they need to keep their minds open, that you can't just say who's coping and who's not. You need to say what is helping you cope. And that's what I would say to them.
Thank you. That's really powerful, and definitely because, people cope with things differently. You can't just generalize everyone with saying that, yeah, everyone's coping fine. So I think that's super important to say. Anna, do you have anything that you'd like to speak about, to shout about, to get them heard?
I think for the government, we should tell them to be clear with their intentions and to make sure everybody knows exactly what we're doing and what we're meant to be doing, and to be ahead of the pandemic as well, just because last time I think we're a bit late into actually going into lockdown. It did cause a lot of literally deaths that could have been prevented, and that was really something that shocked me, because looking at the statistics, that was scary to see what we could have done if we just got into lockdown a bit earlier. That it makes people feel safe if they know what's going on, and just that helps everybody's mental health, because everyone is working towards this goal of helping everybody be safe. And then of course prioritize mental health. I did see a statistic that said that there were more deaths from suicide or something in the last month than from COVID itself. So of course mental health is always a priority, especially during lockdown. I just feel like it wasn't emphasized enough. They could have been more supportive, and in the future they should try to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much, Anna. I really, really appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
To the government, I would say that your job is hard. I understand that. If I put myself in them shoes, I won't be able to cope with it. But that's the point. It's supposed to be hard. Running a country is hard. But if you want to run a country, then you have to include everybody, and especially mental health. Mental health is really important. It's something that has been a problem for ages, and just COVID's just brought that out. So that is kind of a positive about COVID. People have become more aware about mental health, and some people have gone to MindMate and websites like that, and people have helped them.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I think, looking at it very positively again is people are reaching out for help from other people and accessing sites like MindMate. So, hopefully people can continue doing that. And if there are further restrictions in place, people know where to go. Just want to check in with James and Anna. Is there anything that you wanted to say that you've not been able to say, or are you happy?
I feel like at the start of lockdown, or during that period, Boris Johnson used mental health as a bit of an excuse. He said that he didn't want to lock down the country because there's activities that'll prevent people from with the mental health, and it'll affect them. And as much as I agree, the activities, they're valid, but he just kept saying that as if that's why I can't lock down the country and save lives, rather than actually I do really care about mental health, sort of thing. I hope he doesn't say that again. From someone that does suffer, it is very annoying to hear him say something like that.
Yeah, totally. And Anna, just to check, is there anything you wanted to add or say again? Or
I think often it was the government in general did tend to say that locking down would affect the economy, and of course it does, and that does affect lives. But in the middle of a pandemic, the priority is always going to be to save lives, and I think that should always be what the focus is on.
You've been listening to We Work Together, part 1 of our episode on children and young people's mental health during lockdown. Thank you to the amazing Lois, James, Emma and Kemmi, and of course our facilitators Megan and Gage. Please also join us for part 2, where Health and Care Partners will discuss the issues and questions raised by the young people in this part of the episode. Thank you.